Out of all the antagonists that Indiana Jones has faced, this guy is the one that he has the most history with. This is the story of Dr. René Emil Belloq. As the primary villain of the film, Belloq is included in all drafts for Raiders of the Lost Ark, with him always suffering the same fate. He opens the Ark and gets killed by it. However, I just want to point out in one draft, I believe it was the first one, the style of it happening I could only describe as a 2001 Space Odyssey experience. Just give it a read, you'll know what I mean. But going back to the very beginning, Belloq was planned to be called Victor Lovar, but the name René Belloq was eventually settled on. 3 actors were considered for the role, including, okay, I'm going to try very hard to pronounce these names, Jenna Kola Jenina, singer Jock D. Twonick, and Jonathan Pryce. But the part eventually went to English actor Paul Freeman. Since the character is meant to be French, Freeman had to do a suitable accent for director Steven Spielberg. Coincidentally or not, there actually was a French archaeologist called Jacques de Marieux who did collaborate with the Nazis, but didn't look for the Ark of the Covenant, and luckily didn't get a mind-blowing experience from it. Before the film's events, Belloq and Jones had many different encounters, usually starting with Jones finding the artifact and Belloq coming to take it, not just the prize but the credit as well. Unlike Jones, who was always searching for fortune and glory, this does at least respect the history and culture the artifact brings. Belloq, on the other hand, only sees the prize and nothing else, and will do anything to achieve it, even if it meant resorting to violence. Before the search of the Ark, Belloq first encounters Jones after he had taken a golden idol from a temple, which was not an easy task on its own, due to having treacherous tour guides and booby traps to deal with. Nevertheless, Jones had claimed the idol. However, Belloq had informed the local tribesmen, the Huvri-Itos, about Jones, and were all waiting for him outside. After claiming the idol, Belloq sends the warriors after Jones and laughs in triumph. Later on, Jones is given the assignment to find the Ark of the Covenant before the Nazis do, heading into Cairo and reuniting with his old friend Sully and his old flame Marion Ravenwood, who had the medallion that led to the location of the Ark. Jones discovers that the Nazis had hired Belloq to help find it. Using the imprint on Tote's hand, Belloq was able to fashion a copy of the medallion. However, as it was incomplete, the Nazis were at the right location but not near the actual tomb that contained the Ark. While in Cairo, Jones and Marion are ambushed by Belloq's thugs, and after a chase, Marion is believed to have been killed. Drowning his sorrows in a bar, Jones is approached by 2 men who escort him to Belloq. This leads into one of the best hero and villain interactions in the series, or at least in my opinion. As Belloq points out that he and Jones are not so different, and that one little push would make Jones just like Belloq. The following day, Diedrich, the Nazi colonel in charge of the expedition, was starting to lose patience. Believing that Marion, who was actually alive, to hold more answers, Belloq insists that she doesn't know anything. However, after knowing that Diedrich was going to send Tote to interrogate her, Belloq attempts to get more information from her at first. Given her address and partaking in a drinking contest, Marion attempts to escape, which Belloq found amusing, but she is stopped by Tote. Believing that Tote intends to hurt Marion, Belloq quickly shows concerns. While it is brief, it does show that Belloq does have some standards. Still failing to get information from her, the following day started to turn to Belloq's favour. Noticing a group digging in a different area, Belloq and the Nazis found Jones and the Ark. Once again having the more manpower, Belloq steals the Ark, leaving Jones and Marion, much to Belloq's dismay, trapped in the world of souls. However, Jones and Marion were able to escape and steal the Ark back, leading into a truck chase where at one point Jones was able to deroute the staff car off the road, giving Jones the chance to hide just as Belloq arrived. With Jones nowhere to be found. While taking the Ark on a liner, the Nazis were able to recapture the Ark and take Marion prisoner again, but Jones was able to hide and hitch a ride on their U-boat to a secret island base. Once at the base, Belloq, wanting to see if the Ark was genuine, manages to persuade Diedrich to perform a Jewish ceremony to open the Ark. He does this by explaining to Diedrich that Hitler would be pretty angry if the Ark was fake. However, Belloq just wanted to see if the Ark truly had power before he did. While marching to the ceremonial place, Jones reveals himself to be alive and threatens to destroy the Ark unless they let Marion go. However, Belloq, who has been antagonizing Jones for years, knows exactly what type of man he is, and he knows that Jones would never destroy a relic as priceless as the Ark. After calling his bluff, Jones is captured. With his rival at his mercy, Belloq wanted to open the Ark in front of him as one final prize that he managed to steal from him. Later that night, dressed in a fitting attire, Belloq began the ritual. He chants Aramaic instructions, and on his orders, the Ark is opened. At first believing to only contain dust, Belloq's disappointment is soon turned to astonishment and wonder as spirits flew from the Ark, calling them beautiful. However, once the spirits show their true face, Belloq soon looks in horror as flames erupt from the Ark, killing everyone witnessing it. Engulfed in flames and letting out a scream, Belloq's head explodes, and his remains is swept up in a fiery winds. After years of stealing his rightful rewards, Indiana Jones finally got the last laugh on Belloq. As Belloq and Indiana Jones had a history together before the events of Raiders, he appears in many forms of media, most notably novels, including Indiana Jones and the Dinosaur Eggs and Indiana Jones and Hollow Earth. He was also planned to appear in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show. However, the show was cancelled before they had the chance to introduce him. It would have actually shown how Jones and Belloq first met, which has surprisingly not really been explored in full detail in any other forms of media, not even in a novel. Knowing the popularity of prequels, it wouldn't surprise me that we'll get the full story one day. During the early production of Temple of Doom, it was considered for Belloq to make an appearance, as the events of Temple of Doom take place before the events of Raiders, but the character was eventually cut. The reasons why is still unknown to this day. Even Paul Freeman, the actor who played Belloq, isn't quite sure why. But the only reason he knew about it is because, well, Spielberg or George Lucas asked him if he wanted to do it. Video game wise, Belloq appears in the 2 LEGO Indiana Jones games, where you can play as him in all 3 of his clothes. He's usually the final boss in both games. The same thing can be said for the NES game Indiana Jones Greatest Adventures, where he's once again the final boss at the end of the Raiders of the Lost Ark segment. It is kind of unusual to see Belloq as a boss, as he's not really the type of character to get involved in a fight. He lets others do his work for him. Of course, he is using the Ark as a weapon, which kind of goes against the whole point of the Ark, but it's a video game, you're allowed to take certain liberties. Perhaps the most surprising appearance that he makes is in the stage show George Lucas's Super Live Adventure, which combines elements of pretty much any LucasFilms, films, including Star Wars and Indiana Jones. In the show, Belloq follows a role pretty much similar to what he does in Radars, with a bit of Temple of Doom included as well. There's not much information I can find, but by the end, he finds the Ark, opens it, and gets killed by it again. One final thing I just want to point out about Belloq is how he's written. Yes, he is the villain, but is it really worth calling him evil? I mean, he's greedy and immoral, yeah, but I don't know. I just can't call him evil, though. He's clearly not as ruthless as Diedrich or Tote, and even though he's worked with the Nazis, it does imply that he doesn't believe in their goal or anything. He's just using them as a means to an end. So, ironically, despite being Indiana Jones's main rival in the film, I would actually call Belloq the least evil of the film's antagonists. That's what you just got to give credit to the scriptwriters to making him a more three-dimensional, much more realistic character than most of the other villains. And I think that also applies to why he's so popular in the fandom, because he's one of the more grounded, realistic villains in the series. All the other villains, like Molaram and Tote, they have a bit of an exaggeration to them, but not Belloq. Even his French accent, it's not a cartoony, over-the-top accent. It actually feels proper. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say about Belloq. Well, that's 2 down, 1 more to go. Next time, I'll be looking at the 3rd member of Raiders of the Lost Ark's terrible trio, Colonel Diedrich.